Once the story gets loose in the media, it grows legs and runs without you. And suddenly, you're not a person anymore, but a headline, a symbol, a Rorschach test for whatever people already want to believe about power, politics, technology, or me. So, one day I wake up, and there it is, a widely shared claim tying my name to ketamine in some political context, stripped of nuance, stripped of time, stripped of truth, and instantly it's everywhere, scrolling past investors, engineers, critics, partisans, people who have never met me but feel certain they know me, and then Susie Wiles comes out and flatly denies the claim, says it's not true, says it's being misrepresented, and you'd think that would be the end of it. But that's not how the modern attention economy works, because denial doesn't travel as fast as accusation, and correction doesn't burn as bright as controversy. So, I'm watching this unfold, thinking about how often this pattern repeats, how a complex human story gets collapsed into a single sensational word, how context evaporates, how political narratives hunger for villains or mascots, and how my name has become convenient shorthand for whatever story someone wants to tell about influence, or disruption, or fear. And I want to be clear in my own voice, not as a press release or a clipped quote, but as a person who has spent decades building things under a microscope, that rumors about personal behavior are easy to toss into the arena because they feel intimate and scandalous, but they rarely reflect reality, and when something medical or legal or personal is dragged into a political food fight, it stops being about facts and starts being about leverage, about who can frame whom first. And I've learned that even silence gets interpreted as guilt, while speaking gets interpreted as defensiveness. So, you're trapped as this double bind where the story writes itself no matter what you do. And what bothered me most wasn't even the allegation itself, but the way it was used. The way it was insinuated into a broader narrative about credibility and power. As if innovation, risk-taking, or unconventional thinking must secretly be fueled by something illicit rather than by obsession, long hours, failure, and stubborn optimism. And when Susie Wiles denied the claim, it reminded me that truth still matters to some people. That there are moments when someone steps in and says, no, this connection being implied isn't real. But it also reminded me how fragile truth is once it's filtered through incentives that reward outrage over accuracy. And I found myself thinking about how politics now overlaps with celebrity and technology and medicine in these strange, uncomfortable ways where private matters are weaponized and public denials become just another data point to argue over. And I wanted people to understand that I'm not interested in playing that game. I'm interested in building rockets that land themselves, cars that don't poison the air, networks that connect brains and machines. And yes, those ambitions make me an easy target because they're big and visible and polarizing. So, the story becomes less about what actually happened and more about what fits the narrative of the moment. And in telling this story, I'm not asking for sympathy or outrage. I'm asking for a little intellectual honesty, for the recognition that widely shared disputes are often more about the machinery of media than the substance of life. That a denial can be true even if it's less exciting. And that behind every viral controversy, there's a human being watching their name get bent into shapes they never chose, trying to stay focused on the future while the present keeps demanding explanations for things that never really were. And as the noise kept building, I started to notice how repetition turns speculation into something that feels solid, how a question mark disappears after enough retweets, and how people begin to argue over implications instead of evidence. So, I sat there thinking about how strange it is that a single word can eclipse years of work, that a rumor can briefly outweigh factories, satellites, teams of thousands pushing toward deadlines that don't care about gossip. And I remembered earlier moments in my life when I underestimated how aggressively narratives form around people who don't fit neatly into expected boxes, especially when politics gets involved. Because politics has this gravitational pull that drags everything nearby into its orbit. Even personal health discussions, even offhand comments, even distortions. And once you're inside that gravity, well, every action is interpreted through a partisan lens. So denial becomes strategy, silence becomes admission, and complexity becomes suspicious. And I kept thinking about how Susie Wiles saying the claim wasn't true should have been a grounding moment, a pause, a reset. But instead it became another ingredient in the argument, another clip to splice, another angle to debate. And that's when it really hit me how the system incentivizes escalation over resolution, because nobody gets rewarded for saying, okay, that's clarified, let's move on. They get rewarded for squeezing the story until it yields maximum engagement, and that's a dangerous dynamic when it involves real people and serious topics, especially medical ones, because it trains the public to treat health like a scandal and denial like spin. And I don't think most people realize how corrosive that is over time. How it erodes trust, not just in individuals, but in institutions, experts, and even language itself. So I found myself wanting to slow the tape to say, look, the truth here isn't exotic, it's not cinematic, it's not a secret key explaining everything about me. It's just that a claim was made. It spread fast, and it wasn't accurate, and yet the afterimage lingers because the internet doesn't forget and doesn't really forgive. It just layers new takes on top of old ones. And meanwhile, life goes on. Rocket still needs to launch. Servers still need power. People still show up to work expecting leadership and clarity. And you have to provide that while part of your attention is siphoned off by this parallel reality where strangers debate your inner life with confidence. And I think that's the part people don't see, the cognitive tax of being a symbol instead of a person, of having to compartmentalize so the controversy doesn't leak into decision making. Because if you let it, it can make you defensive, cautious, distracted, and none of those are helpful when you're trying to solve hard problems. So I chose to treat it as data, as another example of how narratives propagate, how denial functions, how power dynamics shift in the age of virality. And I reminded myself that truth doesn't always win immediately, but it does tend to outlast noise. That building tangible things is still the most reliable way to anchor reality, and that the people who actually work with me, who see my day-to-day, who understand the difference between rumor and reality, don't need convincing, and in the end that's who I build for. Not the outrage cycle, not the anonymous chorus, but the future-facing work that continues whether or not today's controversy burns itself out tomorrow. Because it always does, replaced by the next one, leaving behind a faint residue and lessons about how quickly stories can detach from facts and how important it is, even when it's exhausting, to keep telling your own story in your own voice. By the time the third wave of commentary rolled in, I had already moved past surprise and into that familiar analytical mode where you step back and watch the system operate. Because once you've seen it enough times, you realize the outrage isn't personal, even when it feels personal. It's procedural. It's a machine doing what it was designed to do. And I kept thinking about how easily people confuse unconventional thinking with instability. How they want a simple psychological explanation for complex outcomes, as if rockets landing vertically or companies moving faster than incumbents must be explained by something scandalous rather than by relentless iteration and tolerance for failure. And in that sense, the ketamine rumor wasn't really about ketamine at all. It was about comfort, about making the unfamiliar feel explainable, about turning ambition into pathology. And when Susie Wiles denied the claim, it briefly interrupted that comfort because it forced the conversation back toward facts. And facts are inconvenient when you've already committed emotionally to a story. So instead of ending the debate, it just shifted it. People arguing about motives, about timing, about why a denial was issued at all. And I watched that unfold with this odd mix of detachment and responsibility, because I know my reactions ripple outward, influencing markets, employees, and public trust. And I don't get the luxury of reacting purely as a private citizen. Every word gets weighed and decoded. So I stayed focused on the work, on engineering reviews and launch windows and product timelines. While in the background, the narrative kept looping, and I thought about how strange it is that we live in an era where attention itself has become a resource more volatile than any commodity, where a rumor can spike like a stock and crash just as fast, leaving confusion in its wake. And I wondered how younger builders watching this might internalize the lesson, whether they'd conclude that visibility is dangerous or that truth is optional. And that concerned me more than the story itself, because innovation depends on people being willing to stand out, to take risks, to be wrong in public. And if every deviation from the norm is met with character assassination, then the incentive structure tilts toward conformity. And that's a slow death for progress. So in my own mind, I reframed the episode as a case study,